Okay. We are back at 1:30 and we will reconvene this meeting and we will be discussing the E911. And we have in front of us today Chief Vern Nichols, CFO Kelly Koski. I knew it. I just couldn't quite get there. Shay Allred and Rick Spencer. Come on down. Grab a mic. If you would grab this other mic, and I'll ask you guys to pull those as close as possible so that the people out there in YouTube land can actually hear us.
And so, Commissioners, I think at this point, you guys are convening as the E911 Authority
Correct.
Board, not the Board of County Commissioners
Correct,
anymore.
the E911 Authority Board. And we're going to have a discussion as it's related to the dispatch equipment and upgrades.
That's correct. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for having us. I have Kelly, City Manager, and then Shay, the IT, to help answer questions that I will not know. Can you hear me good?
Yep.
There you go.
I apologize for kind of getting the packet out a little bit late, but by the time we had the dispatch accountability committee meeting and that accountability committee discussed all of these priorities for dispatch and give me authorization to come before the board to discuss this with you. That was Thursday, and then so I got it out as quick, and I think it was last night that you got it. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at everything, but just a little bit of background. The Vesta 911 phone system that is currently operating, that we're using in dispatch right now, is about 13 years old. Industry standards about 5 years on hardware, and then software changes all the time. So the Vesta system is currently working, but because of its age, if something was to happen, Lumen no longer supports that version, nor are there upgrades that would fix anything that happened. So if something went wrong with our 911 phone system right now, it'd be pretty catastrophic for the dispatch center. So that's one of the items that we're gonna discuss. Also in 2020, the authority board authorized or purchased for dispatch a radio recording system from what are they called? Stonehenge Properties, doing business as RevCord, and I'll refer to it as the RevCord recorder. From initial install, the RevCord recorder has not functioned as specified in the RFP that was sent out and they answered. There's been lengthy conversations and a lot of work done by our IT teams to try to remedy the deficiencies in that recorder, and that hasn't happened. I think it's come to the point where RevCord or Stonehenge has actually told our IT team that you guys didn't purchase this, we're no longer talking to you. Am I correct in that?
Pretty much.
Pretty much. And in that packet I've attached a bunch of emails back and forth with them that kind of show some of the conversations and some of the issues that we're having with that recorder. So right now the recorder doesn't function the way that I think we as a community, public safety community, feel it should function. And I think that we need to look at a different recorder. So we'll discuss that. Then on August 4th, the power was lost to Menifee Mountain And when that power was lost, the Menifee EMS tower, the Menifee law enforcement tower has a generator. It worked fine, but we lost power to the Menifee EMS tower. That tower is used by Mancus Fire and Southwest Memorial Hospital, the ambulance over there, for emergency fire and EMS calls on the east end of the county. When that tower went down, Mancus Fire lost communications. Southwest, once they realized it went down, they were able to switch over to 800s and operate, but that was a pretty significant event. A remedy for that is installing some backup batteries on that tower. So if power is lost, those batteries will kick in, and we'll get into that a little bit more. And then another item that we were wanting to bring forth, our dispatch center doesn't use a guide card system for fire and law enforcement right now. They do use an EMD card system, however, the cards are physical. So they're sitting on the desk in front of the dispatcher when they get a call. Somebody's not breathing, they flip through the cards and it prompts them on questions to ask. It can guide the dispatcher through giving instructions for CPR and things like that. What we're looking at doing or want to propose to the board is looking at a APCO card system that's digital, that would include fire, law enforcement, EMS. And what this would do is when dispatch enters when they receive a call and they enter that call into CAD, it will prompt that system to pull up these cards, and it guides the dispatcher through questions to ask. It'll also, based on the type of call, it'll also recommend, if it's a large structure fire, that system would recommend, okay, you need to dispatch this, and this fire apparatus. So those are the four things that we were kind of looking at. Logger. Yeah. So I briefly went through and talked about the four things that we're kind of looking at. You want to back up and then go through them individually and discuss them a little bit more, like the Vesta phone service, or 911 phone system?
Sure, we can.
Okay.
And I'll be the first one to tell you, I got this late last night, and I didn't even open it up until 5:30 this morning. So I didn't get the opportunity to get through, I think there's like 70-some pages on there.
Yeah.
So I'll be honest with you, I didn't get through the whole thing. I did read the synopsis on the first couple of pages. So my first question to you is out of the four asks here, as priorities, what do you have them ranked in priority from the Vesta 911 system, or to the rev cord, the batteries for Menifee, or the actual guide cards? How do you have those listed in priorities?
If I had to prioritize, I'd probably prioritize them as they're listed in.
So just as you presented? it?
Yeah, the
Okay.
911 phone system. I mean, I think that's critical.
The oldest,
Yes.
okay.
The voice logger is critical. Prosecutors, there's a lot of reliance on these recorded calls by the district attorney's office, the
So-
public defender's office. We're making recordings all the time.
Right, so I'll start there because that was in 2020, so I was part of that conversation when we actually, the presentation was given to us by you all.
Yeah.
Not you specifically, but the dispatch center. And now they won't even talk to you because you didn't purchase it, so was that because you're functioning as a city of Cortez, or why are they not even talking to you? That seems a little bizarre to me.
So, pretty much what happened was that system was supposed to be purchased with the intent of upgrading it to what Motorola calls AIS. And AIS is automation services that runs from the new state radio system into the radio logger. They were not able to make that work, as they said in the RFP. I got them in touch with Ed, who's the state engineer for the state radio system. We went from there to Motorola as Digicom, their service provider, which is our service provider. We did everything we could to help them try to make their system work with the new state radio system on the digital side. And no matter what we could do for them, they couldn't make it work, and it turned into a, well, it's your fault, no, it's our fault, no, it's your fault, a finger pointing deal. And so we pulled in the state engineer and the engineer from Motorola, and their system cannot turn the gain up far enough to where you can make a recording that's audible to where you can hear it on the reconstruction of all of the calls. And that was a specific item in the RFP that server has to be able to do. And I think it was in February last year, roughly right in there. It's in the packet. We started the process of pulling away from them, and once that was set up, then once they got the letter from the attorney, pretty much they quit talking to everybody else.
So we're still using it as it's currently functioning, which is?
It's working as is, and it pulls the 800 megahertz. It doesn't pull any of the state digital side. It's about 75% effective, which is not acceptable for what we need that system to do. The new RFP with the Eventide will be able to perform all of the functions that RevCore does, plus the AIS function of pulling the digital system over into a recording that's audible to where people can hear it.
So I saw the letter that the attorney wrote, I think it was the early part of this year. So
Right.
my question is gonna be to the attorney, if we, what path do we have as far as moving forward with this company? Because it's not doing what they said it would do, and it's deficient.
Yeah,
Before
so-
we go somewhere else and purchase something else. I mean,
So the letter from the attorney, which attorney?
it came from Mike Green,
Mike
which is in
Green.
the packet.
And I didn't get through the whole packet, and I got it late last night too. I mean, certainly, if the system doesn't conform to what was requested in the RFP,
Right.
that's an issue. And
Yeah.
and that's an issue for this board and that I can certainly handle. I mean, I think that the starting point is to reach out to the company and figure out what's going on. I mean, if this is an issue on their end, then obviously the product doesn't conform to the RFP, and we need to be looking for some kind of refund on this equipment.
Mhm.
I mean, that's kind of where we are at this point.
Okay. So, this was kind of set up like at a 5-year deal, right? If I remember right, when we first talked about this?
2 or 3. I don't know how I don't know how the original agreement was set up. I was just a part of the technical piece of that,
Mhm.
and I gave my recommendation, go with this one, and this one. But I don't know how the original agreement was set up, whether it was 2 years, 3 years. But
Okay.
it was installed November of 20. November of 20 was when the system was
So
installed.
it's
and it
coming up
hasn't-
on 2 years.
It has, and it hasn't functioned literally as the way it was supposed to per the RFP since day one.
Okay. So that's kind of an attorney question now, because obviously we're gonna have to do something, because this is not, we didn't even get what we were promised, and if that's truly
I can,
So who put out the RFP? I mean, it looks like from this letter that the city put out the RFP.
no, it was put out as the 911 Authority Board.
yep, that I remember,
Yeah.
yeah, the 911 Authority Board came in here and did a presentation,
Okay.
probably early in 20,
Early 19, late
or
19.
19.
Yeah, late 19.
Now you're going a long way back.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of those dates get,
Yeah.
and I just barely remember because I was here in 19, but
I have all of that information, but I figured that packet was big enough.
it is big enough.
Yeah.
But now we're gonna want more.
Yeah.
So I guess that, we probably just need to follow up on that one, Ian, because we definitely have, been promised and purchased something that we don't have, or it doesn't sound like we never even got.
Right.
And now they won't talk to you guys at all.
They won't talk to me.
And that's because we bought it instead of you, the city?
Correct.
No, okay.
Well, the E911 board
Yeah.
purchased it.
Yeah.
Okay,
We can still submit tickets, and they'll perform remote support on the server, but outside of that, they don't go above and beyond for anything anymore. It's just,
and we're functioning at about
Gain function.
75%.
yeah.
And they still want us to pay for annual service too. They really want that.
Yeah.
They'll talk to the city about that, but nothing else.
Yeah, that's a $5,000 a year thing now.
And that's money that comes out of the E911 fund.
Mhm.
Yes.
If you were to pay it, yeah.
Okay. I looked at just real briefly the cost for all of these. So your request for all four asks is the 741,000?
That includes some other items that I think are already earmarked through the 911 authority. I listed those under physical impacts, like long-distance phone is paid every year. Nixle emergency warning systems is paid by the board every year. The recorder maintenance contract is the $5,000. That could come off if we did something else. Text to 911 web base, the board pays for. The radio system maintenance contract is $24,000. That comes out of the authority. $30,000 for the GIS department, mapping and addressing. $10,000 for pictometry mapping. And $36,000 for the EZNet 911 Next Gen. And then there's $35,000 for the 911 phone system maintenance. And then $10,000 for maintenance expenses for the VHF repeaters that come up. And then everything below that, $421,996 is the phone system. And just real quick, while we're right there, this phone system, what we're looking at here is actually an upgrade. It's the new Vesta, so it would be an upgrade, which brings a little bit of, familiarity. Dispatchers are familiar with it a little bit. And it also, if we went with a completely different provider, we probably have to go through the RFP process and all of that over, and because it's an upgrade, I think we can just upgrade. And I think it'll also save, Shay was estimating a couple $100,000 versus going to a completely new 911 phone system provider. So this is currently an upgrade of our system that we have now.
That system, how many phones is that, do you know?
It's got the capabilities of up to 40 consolettes.
Okay, but how many phones are we talking about in the dispatch center now?
4
4, okay,
With this upgrade, it'll be 7.
okay. And the need for 7 is why? Over
So,
4?
this upgrade also includes a, offsite. So one of my goals, is to, develop a alternate dispatch in case
Backup.
something happens. So we're working on that. This upgrade would incorporate that, offsite dispatch. And that offsite would operate just like it does at the police department building. Currently what we have is a legal pad and a handheld radio. If something happens to dispatcher goes outside and off the hood of a car is a handheld radio and a legal pad. We don't have, nothing's tracked through our CAD system, our eForce CAD, nothing. So I feel, as the PSAP, we need to have a contingency plan. We've had a couple of incidents. We had a bomb threat at the PD and a gas leak at the PD, and employees weren't evacuated because there was no radio, and that wasn't, that didn't set well with me. So that's when I started thinking that we need to have, if we're gonna provide 911 services, we need to have a way that we can do
backup
it. if
system.
there's- Yeah,
Somewhere,
So
somewhere.
remote.
with this quote, with the term upgrade, you're actually getting the extra the necessary equipment to do that, and we're still getting it at a deeper discounted cost, as opposed to going with a new provider and going through the RFP process. Because we just got a year's worth of service with them,
Yep.
so they're giving it to us at a really good cost. I've looked at some of the other systems, and brand new, you're looking at $530,000 to $600,000 for a new provider, roughly. And now, those are all numbers that you just kind of come across with people as you're asking for budgetary quotes.
Real quick, Vern, you might want to explain to the commissioners about if 911 goes down, say you have a power outage, how you flip the switch and it'll switch to like Durango or CSPO where your second provider is, but it's not an actual dispatch center.
Yeah, that's correct. The dispatchers can flip a switch, which will take the 911 calls and send them to Durango, and then they can dispatch. However, we still lose our CAD information and everything like that. They can dispatch, radio calls and everything, but yeah, so it can go to Durango right now.
Right, but you're talking more for a remote location somewhere within the county, wherever
Yes.
you choose that designation to be, so it's not a radio and a pad.
Yes,
They actually have a place to go
yep.
to.
Yeah.
Okay,
And this
Yep.
has all that engineering and everything built into this quote.
And not something that is in a cabinet that they pull out and set up, because the issues with that are computers set in a cabinet, unplugged off the network, in 6 months when they need them and they pull them out, they're not updated. So this off-site, in my opinion, should be hooked into the network and running. So when IT pushes upgrades, it's everything's upgraded.
okay. All right. Number 3 is your batteries
Mr.
for Menifee.
Candelaria,
Oh,
can we
sorry.
just go back to the phone system?
Sure.
I think it's important to note from a financial standpoint that we realize that is a big ask, but the state of supply chain delays that we are talking about, it is possible that half or a piece of that could come out of like 23, and then the other half or piece of it could come out of the 24. So I don't foresee that we need to pay for the entire system in 1 year. Just important to know.
So it's that delayed?
Yes.
I mean, that's,
Yeah, nothing, when everything's put together and it's done, engineered, upgraded, and it's actually in function, that's when the bill's due for the system. And right now, just getting the hardware, they're anywhere from 10 to 11 months out.
Oh my gosh.
And as long as we're jumping around, I just want to briefly jump back to the recording system. I'm looking at this contract and this letter from the city attorney. It looks like the contract was entered into between the city of Cortez and the provider of the recording system. So I mean, as an E911 authority board, we're going to have difficulty here because really the city is the one that entered into this contract. I'm not sure how that happened. I mean, it sounds like we paid for the system, but the city was the other party. And so, to the extent that there are issues with the system, this looks to me like something that the city needs to take up with this provider. And, you guys have counsel. I mean, we can do what we can from this seat, but ultimately, as this contract reads, this is a contract between the city and the provider. The counties, the county and the E911 authority, they're not mentioned in this contract anywhere. I mean, so I don't know how that happened. Maybe we put forward the money. Obviously, this was before my time, so I probably need some more context. But ultimately, the way this contract's written, if this isn't delivering the services that it needs to deliver, the city's the one that's probably going to have to front that battle and try to get them in compliance with the RFP.
I think one of their sticking points was they act like, yeah, we entered into this contract, but we actually received payment from the county. So the county actually owns it. Is there?
That doesn't matter. That contract is between the city
Yeah.
and this provider. And, so I certainly can reach out and consult with counsel for the city. But the way this contract's written, we as an E911 authority, we're not a party to this contract. We're not here. And just because we authorize the city to purchase this or enter into this agreement, this board didn't sign this contract. This board isn't a party to this contract. And so, in my mind, and again, this is just a cursory look at it, and I'm trying to get a sense of the history. But ultimately, as this reads, right now the city's the one that is on this thing.
What has your council stated as far as moving forward on this? Because obviously we want to get some kind of a reimbursement for this system.
Yeah, I mean, it's worrisome to me that the system's not functioning as it's supposed to function, and now we're just going to eat it and go get a new system. I mean, that doesn't sit right. And if there's a contract in place that the city is one party and the provider's the other party, and the provider's not living up to the contract, then, as the contract's written, the city has a duty to enforce this thing. Get it done. Get it right.
Yeah, we can reach out to our attorney. City Attorney Mike Green, former, he did, initiate the process. So maybe that's the next step we need to do. I was kind of going off, and I did notice that this was signed by the city manager.
Signed by John.
Former.
Gordon. Yeah,
And,
former city manager.
But I figured that there was some issues underlying that I didn't know that brought you guys into the fold, but we'll absolutely move forward with this.
Well, and we have a letter from the city attorney saying that the contract's terminated. So obviously, we're going to need to all get together and share some documents and get some more backstory. I'm a little confused how this contract was even entered into by the city when ultimately, probably in my mind, the E911 authority should have been the one to enter into this contract. But ultimately, as this contract reads, we're going to have trouble as this board dealing with this contract because we're just not a party to the contract. We're not there.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
You'll have to obviously get your council on board with that to navigate that. I mean, we'll help you with it, but my concern with RevCord is if they're doing nothing but providing just simple remote tickets, that's really not providing much of a service.
Well, it's not functioning, it's
At
not
all.
functioning as it's supposed to
Right.
be engineered.
Okay,
But ultimately, the answer to that is to hold this provider
Yep.
to the fire, not to just drop this and go get a new system.
right.
Well, I did that for 9 to 10 months, and no matter what the company did, they could never come up with the necessary solution. That's why we've moved on to another provider. I didn't just drop this on a whim. I did
Yeah.
lots of years of, or lots of months of troubleshooting,
I
working
think
with that
it's,
company.
I think what Ian is saying is that now that it's gone beyond that, now it has to go into a now it goes to a step to the attorneys. It's not that you didn't try to do your work, now it's, we've gotta go, now we're taking another step to say, hey, our attorneys are involved because you've tried to do your job and you can't get anything, it's not functioning still, almost 2 years into it. You sold us something that said it would perform, it hasn't performed, and now we have to take the next step.
Right.
That's all he's saying. So our attorneys are involved in that one.
Okay, we'll
So-
move forward with that, and then as things come up, or we'll keep the board
Okay,
informed.
okay. Then thirdly, the batteries for Menifee, because we lost the EMS and Mancus Fire.
It was the Menifee EMS tower, which services Mancus Fire and the VHF radios for the ambulance.
And this is just for a battery backup and that's it? This is the most cost-effective thing on this list. Like, hey, this is great.
I know, yeah, and according to, and I believe the quote is in here from, well, I know it is, but I think 36 hours battery power. Without any power, if we lost power and there was a forest fire and Mancus Fire was on the radio all the time, it wouldn't last 36 hours. But it would give 36 hours standby time.
Vern,
Okay.
Chief, real quick, I want to verify the cost on that battery. At the I want to make sure you're not missing a zero.
Says $1,200 is what I'm reading.
Did I fat finger the quote?
$1,200 Menifee EMS repeater battery backup.
Unless I'm reading something wrong, Chief.
Oh, I took that down. It's out of there. And made a copy of it and left it on my desk. Are you looking at the invoice from Digicom?
No, I was actually just looking at your first
Your
3
submission.
pages of synopsis of all of the costs.
Okay. Yeah, no, that is wrong. That is a mess up.
So it's in the back then, it's from Digicom also? After the
Yeah,
logger?
Yes, it's in there, and I believe it's 9,000.
Well, it's still by far the best from everything else that I'm looking at. Okay,
There's about 600 emails on here from Jim Spratlin. Anybody else have that problem?
No.
No,
9,393 and 7 cents. I apologize.
$1,200 was per battery, if I remember.
Yeah.
I'm still watching out for you, Chief.
Thank you.
okay. All right, and then lastly, your card system, or guide card system, I think you called it.
There's some other benefits along with the card system that I really like. as the manager of the dispatch center. Not only will it prompt our dispatchers to gather pertinent information, that information that they gather as they answer these questions is sent to the CAD. And then that information goes out when the call is dispatched. So with Cortez Fire running, you know, the MDTs in their vehicles, it'll have all that information in there, which would be a huge improvement as to what's going on now. It also, you know, when we review calls, a lot of the information in CAD is, you know, shorthand. As they're in a hurry, they're typing things in shorthand. And you go back and review a call, and a lot of times when you read through them, it's just not clear. It's really hard to tell what was going on. I think it'll improve that as well. There's also a quality assurance portion. So if dispatchers aren't performing appropriately, it alerts the supervisor, and the supervisor can sit down and look through that call and see what's being missed, what's not being answered, and so they can evaluate the dispatcher and the call for quality assurance. External reviews, you know, Cortez Fire wants to review a call, that's captured. They can bring that up and share it. And it also scores the dispatcher as to how they do, which would be extremely useful for annual evaluations and things like that. You know, so there's a lot that kind of come along with that. Part of the something that would need to go along with this is the eForce interface. The APCO and Telecom would need to have interface built by eForce so that information flows back and forth. And that was a pretty hefty estimate in the beginning. It was $22,800. But there's another eForce user that is going to this system, and so we would be able to half that interface build charge with that other agency.
So that's the 11,400.
That's the 11,400.
Do all agencies in the county have access to this?
It would, yes, yes. As dispatchers dispatch, it would work with all the other agencies.
Okay.
Yep.
So then the eForce is the 11.4 along with the 38.5 for the actual APCO and Telecom
Yeah.
combined?
49.9 total, I
Yeah.
think.
50 grand.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? When do you want an answer?
I don't,
Do I get at least the opportunity to actually review the entire packet?
absolutely. Yeah, this is just, this
I
is
mean-
bringing information forward to you. Just kind of bringing what we feel are some needs
Right.
and some improvements, and kind of felt like if you know, the authority board felt it appropriate to purchase these, I think it would help our services out quite a bit.
So, again, like I said, you know, give me the opportunity to actually review the whole packet in a manner that I can actually decipher the entire thing. Like I said, I did it in a few hours this morning before we started our meeting, so I did not get 100% through it.
Yeah, we're gonna have another the Dispatch Accountability Committee. We're meeting monthly now, so October 20th, is it the 20th? October.
So some of these are gonna be much easier to give a yay or a nay on for me, and I'm talking just for me, because we're talking, 50,000 or 93. Now we have a big conversation that's gonna get into litigation, based on the other radio system, or the rev cord system. And then, the other one, which is the big one, which is the Vesta 911, which is the 421,000, but,
Yep.
is it fair can we put this back, next week? Do you guys have any issues with that next week, to give us the opportunity to look at it all?
I-
And then,
I think for the radio portion, the recorder portion, it's
That-
gonna take more than a week to
I'm
get
not- I'm
anything
not-
solid.
I'm not talking about that one. Obviously, that one's
okay.
gonna be, the attorneys are gonna get involved, and that one's actually probably gonna get,
Litigated.
if you've dealt with them for 9 months, it's probably gonna be another 9 months.
Right.
However, the other ones are something else that we can kind of move forward and look at. And even if it's gonna be 9 or 10 months before you even get the components, or potentially get the components.
Well, the new logger system we could probably have that into next month. The Vesta 911, that's the one that's gonna be 9 to 11 months out. And also a quick clarification on this, E-Force portion of it, this 38 and 11 that adds together. When we put that piece into the CAD system, that gives us an ISO rating of 20 within the county, which helps lower the insurance for all homeowners in the county.
So that gives the ISO rating, because right now, within the district, the entire county's not, ISO ratings are different.
They are, and so each fire district that has.
Thank you, Rick. You have to use the microphone.
So, right now, each fire district, because the dispatch center doesn't use a computerized guide card, sorry about my phone, a computerized categorization and prioritization system for fire and EMS calls, all the fire districts are losing 20 points in their ISO rating in the communications section. Now, that's only gonna come for, I don't know how many points altogether, but if this system was bought, then all of those fire agencies in the county would then get those points.
Right, the plus 20.
The plus
So whether
20.
you guys are still a category 4,
Uh-huh,
correct?
yep.
And what is Louis Ariola?
I don't know what they are, but with this, it could potentially raise everybody a point, depending
Right.
on how everything shakes out.
Right.
But right now, because there is no computerized system for fire-related calls, nobody gets those points.
Sure, everybody loses out on those 20
Everybody
points.
loses
So,
out on that.
again, those are the easy ones to look at, because they're easy. I'm looking at a CFO over there shaking her head. Those are easy. They're a little easier to bite onto. The big one I can see is gonna be the real issue is the number 2, which here again, now that's kind of, that'll take place. And then, the Vesta, we're looking at
Potentially August.
basically a year if we're lucky.
Right.
10 months to a year. So, we can definitely have that conversation. So I don't think, other than item number 2, the rev cord, I think that gives us time to review this packet, have any more questions that we need to have asked, and at least have another conversation next week, at least on item 3 and 4 specifically, which are quick. And then anything else on the number 1, ask.
Yeah. Big, it's a big ask.
That's a big ask. That's the big one. And I'm not saying that it's not, not warranted. Just let us get through the entire packet.
Yeah, and Lori's been pushing this off for quite a few years in dispatch. I mean, it's been working. And I think where we run into trouble is when the operating system and the upgrades were no longer.
Yeah.
Currently, the system's working, but
And this upgrade that, I mean, because something that we always look at too is, first of all, how much do we have in the budget? Obviously, and what's this gonna cost us? Because upgrades in the communication, obviously, you guys know what our background is. We're all about it.
Yeah.
But still, we have to make sure that,
Yep.
do we have enough in there to do it? But if we're potentially out that far and we're not gonna pay that bill for 10 months at best, it sounds like.
Yeah.
That kind of makes a little bit easier decision. So I think we should probably just put this till next Tuesday under, we have to do it under the E911
Correct.
board. So we'd have to do it again at 1:30, but then we could have this conversation after that. That gives you time to get with your attorney to see where he's got to go with this and get back more information to us on item number 2, the rev cord.
Perfect.
Does that
Yeah.
make logical sense? And
Yeah.
that's another reason why we meet every week.
Okay, yeah, exactly.
Because nothing gets pushed out. We can make decisions next week.
And as far as I was concerned, I think this is exactly what this meeting was, my intention of this meeting was get the information out so you guys could consider it. I wasn't planning on any decisions being made, but I felt like at least get the information to you, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Any
I
other
would
questions?
ask that next time you have problems with a customer like this with E911 funds, don't wait 2 years.
No, wait.
Let us know what's going on.
Yeah,
I think with our new city attorney that we have, we'll probably have a much greater success with litigation with this company than we would have had in the past.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
And I hope so, because it sounds like you're frustrated beyond belief after your 10 months of trying to get something done. But now it's time that we have to take that next step.
Yeah.
Now it has to get
As
passed
long
on.
as we can fill the void behind it.
Okay? Next week.
all right.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ken.
Yep. Have a good day. Okay, gentlemen, that's the only thing that we had on our E911 agenda. So with that, if you have nothing else for the E911, I would,
You guys
I
play
already tried
baseball
to
with hand
adjourn it.
signals or what? Somebody gonna steal a base?
okay.
Move
Second.
we adjourn. Second,
right.
whatever.
All right.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn the E911 board meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.